One of the most mysterious characters in A Song of Ice and Fire is Marwyn. His sudden appearance at the end of A Feast for Crows was fascinating, and hinted at much deeper and more complicated clockwork moving beneath the surface. Who is Marwyn? In the Citadel, he is called Marwyn the Mage. He is one of the few with a Valyrian steel link on his maesters chain, indicating his study of magic. Though Marwyn is an Archmaester, he is less respected than others due to the fact that he is the Archmaester of magic. Marwyn has traveled the world. He spent 8 years traveling distant lands, searching for lost books, studying with shadowbinders and warlocks. In A Feast for Crows, it is mentioned that Marwyn claimed to have found 3 pages of visions written down by Daenerys the Dreamer before the doom of Valyria. At the end of A Feast for Crows, a glass candle is seen burning in his chambers. A glass candle, of course, is an ancient magical object known during the time of ancient Valyria that gives the user the power to communicate over long distances and even enter the dreams of other people. The fact that Marwyn has a glass candle that burns is indicative that he is on to the fact that magic has rushed back into the world. Previously, no maester could light one. The significance of this is highlighted by Quaithe in A Dance with Dragons when she says, "Hear me, Daenerys Targaryen, the glass candles are burning," and then goes on to warn Daenerys about various threats. In A Feast for Crows, Marwyn lets on that he is aware of various prophecies, including the one which told of the prince that was promised. He leaves at the end of A Feast for Crows to go seek out Daenerys. Though this is Marwyn's first appearance, it is not the first time he was mentioned in the books. In fact, he was mentioned as early as Book 1. In the first book, Mirri Maz Duur claims that a maester named Marwyn opened up a human body for her and showed her its inner workings. She claimed that this happened in Asshai. Jorah seems skeptical of this, but her description of him aligns.
"Marwyn he named himself," the woman replied in the common tongue. "From the sea, beyond the sea, the 7 lands, he said. Sunset lands, where men are iron and dragons rule. He taught me this speech."
A maester in Asshai, Jorah mused. Tell me, God's wife, what did this maester Marwyn wear about his neck?
"A chain so tight it was like to choke him, Iron Lord, with links of many metals."
Mirri also claims that it was Marwyn who taught her the common tongue, which indicates that they had to have been together for quite a while. When Drogo is sick and dying, Mirri reveals that she has studied in Asshai with a blood mage who taught her black magic.
"There is a spell."
Her voice was quiet, scarcely more than a whisper.
"But it is hard, lady, and dark. Some would say that death is cleaner. I learned the way in Asshai, and paid dear for the lesson. My teacher was a blood mage from the Shadowlands."
Dany went cold all over.
"Then you are truly a magi." "Am I?"
Mirri Maz Duur smiled.
"Only a magi can save your rider now, Silver Lady."
Notice Mirri says that she learned the way in Asshai, and then specifies that her teacher was in fact from the Shadowlands. This is another example which suggests that the Shadowlands are a separate place from Asshai. If Mirri had meant that the Blood Mage was from Asshai, then saying Shadowlands would have been redundant, because Dany would have automatically assumed that he was from Asshai. I think that what Mirri Maz Duur did to Khal Drogo can be looked at as a kind of pseudo-necromancy. I say this because though she didn't quite bring Drogo back from the dead, she brought him back from the brink of death. Another character in A Song of Ice and Fire does a similar thing, Qyburn, and interestingly enough, Qyburn is also connected with Marwyn. When Gregor Clegane is fatally wounded, Qyburn brings him back somehow, from the brink of death, but stronger. If Qyburn and Mirri learned similar techniques from Marwyn, then it would make sense why Qyburn succeeded and Mirri only made Drogo catatonic. A former maester with direct access to as much knowledge and resources as he could possibly need could obviously produce a better product. Mirri also could have made Drogo catatonic on purpose. This is hinted at in Daenerys' final chapter in A Game of Thrones. According to Qyburn, he was banned from the Citadel after he was caught performing experiments on living people. Why did the Citadel take your chain?
"The Archmaesters are all craven at heart, the grey sheep, Marwyn calls them. I was as skilled a healer as Ebros, but aspired to surpass him. For hundreds of years the men of the Citadel opened the bodies of the dead to study the nature of life. I wish to understand the nature of death, so I opened the bodies of the living. For that crime the Grey Sheep shamed me and forced me into exile. But I understand the nature of life and death better than any man in Old Town.
Qyburn here expresses disdain against the maesters, while at the same time distinguishing Marwyn from the others. Qyburn mentions Marwyn again in a conversation with Jaime about Ghost.
"Do you believe in Ghost, Maester?" he asked Qyburn. The man's face grew strange. "Once, at the Citadel, I came into an empty room and saw an empty chair. Yet I knew a woman had been there only a moment before. The cushion was dinted where she'd sat. The cloth was still warm, and her scent lingered in the air. If we leave our smells behind us when we leave a room, surely something of our souls must remain when we leave this life."
Qyburn spread his hands.
"The Archmaesters did not like my thinking, though. Well, Marwyn did, but he was the only one."
Qyburn suggests that Marwyn has similar views to him on the nature of life and death, and he again denotes a certain amount of respect for Marwyn as opposed to the other maesters. So Miri and Qyburn have both performed acts of pseudo-necromancy. In A Clash of Kings, the word necromancy is even directly used in describing how Qyburn lost his chain.
It was whispered that he had lost it for dabbling in necromancy.
So we have two characters from completely separate parts of the world, both performing a form of necromancy, who both happen to connect to the Citadel's Archmaester of Magic. On top of this, Mirri Maz Duur's actions with Daenerys have far-reaching implications that have already affected thousands of people and will soon affect the entire globe. If it was not for Mirri Maz Duur's ritual, Dany's dragons would have never been born. And who can say what the effects that Qyburn's influence on Cersei will have on the story? Cersei is the Queen of Westeros and one of the most powerful women in the world. Qyburn could do some serious damage if he was in fact working towards some goal. What I'm saying is, it doesn't seem likely that Marwyn being connected with both Mirri Maz Duur and Qyburn is a coincidence, especially when Marwyn seems to understand prophecy. If these three were, for instance, a part of an organization or group of people who had an interest in making prophecies come true and shaping the future of the world, then all of their actions make more sense. Mirri was necessary to the birth of Dany's dragons. Is it possible that she was where she was, when she was, because she was waiting for Daenerys? An elaborate sacrifice for some greater goal? Dany's dragons will either remake the world or consume the world. Which one is not clear. So much of this seems to tie back into the Shadowlands. The place, which I suggested in my video titled Bloodstone's Dragon, was the home to the Church of the Starry Wisdom. Is it possible that Marwyn, Qyburn, and even Mirri are members of this group? Or are being influenced by it? Qyburn slowly gains more and more of Cersei's trust. It works best because he isolated her from Jaime and fed into her paranoid delusions. But if Qyburn is a member of this organization, and one of his goals was to in fact sow discord between Cersei and Jaime so that he would have more control over Cersei, then I believe this started far earlier than A Feast for Crows. In A Storm of Swords, Qyburn gives Jaime dream wine, and Jaime dreams of being trapped in the dungeons of what he assumes is Casterly Rock at first, but later he wonders if he was truly in his home. In the dream, Cersei abandons him, while Brienne stays to help Jaime face his darkness. When Jaime awakes, it is revealed that he was laying on a weirwood stump. This leads the reader to think that it was perhaps the old god sending Jaime his dream. But why discount Qyburn's dream wine? Also, if Qyburn is indeed a member of the Starry Wisdom, then George R. R. Martin's choice of words when Jaime wakes up is quite interesting indeed.
Heart pounding, he jerked awake, and found himself in starry darkness amidst a grove of trees.
Starry darkness could symbolize the Church of the Starry Wisdom, the same way the Whispering Stars in Dany's chapter does. Finally, since both Mirri and Qyburn perform some kind of necromancy, it's important to mention that the World of Ice and Fire says that the Bloodstone Emperor, who of course was said to have started the church, was a practitioner of necromancy. All three of these characters are connected. Whether they are pawns or members of the church, or merely red herrings, is obviously uncertain. But undeniably, there is much more going on beneath the surface than meets the eye.